Hey guys, today I'll share with you 6 study tips that have helped me in the past and hopefully they'll be useful to you as well. Let's get right into it. One of the most beneficial tips I can give you is taking practice tests, whether that's before or during your studying. If we take a practice test before we actually start studying, we can test our baseline knowledge and our understanding of the actual topic. We can then use that understanding to help plan the rest of our studying. And when we do take a practice test, we also learn from our mistakes, which, from my experience, is how I learn best. When we take a practice test, we can also simulate the situation we will face on the actual exam day. So, for example, being under time pressure using only one pen, not being able to use whiteout and stuff like that. And knowing what to expect can also help us boost our confidence and keep us calm when the actual day comes. So in general, taking practice tests has many benefits and I'd really recommend doing this. Say it with me now, don't cram. We all do it, we all know we shouldn't do it, and yet it happens almost every single exam. My number one tip is actually trying to find motivation in doing so. So if that's, for example, buying yourself something nice after the exam, taking a night off, meeting with friends, or just realizing how big of an impact and how useful the information we learn in high school actually is. A lot of the times we deem stuff that we learn in high school as unimportant, uninteresting, and completely useless, when really that's not the case. As Francis Bacon put it, knowledge is power. And if we have a general idea in every field, every topic, we can learn to communicate better with others, find similar interest points, and just in general be a more well-rounded and knowledgeable person. This all of a sudden got really deep, but I just really want to emphasize that what we learn in high school is not useless as a lot of people put it, and can actually be really beneficial. And I think it's really important to actually appreciate the opportunity that we were able to educate ourselves. Okay, I'll stop now. Let's just move on to the next tip. A really great way to retain information for a longer period of time is to use the memory palace or the method of Loki. And this method is actually used by many memory contestant champions for remembering and recalling faces, digits, and lists of words. It's actually one of the most popular methods of memorizing the digits of pi. And it's actually really simple to use. You just need to visualize a location, whether that be real or made up, which you can take an imaginary walk through, and leaving reminders along the way for different names, phrases, or words. I'll show you an example here. We'll try to build a memory palace, memorizing these 8 plays by Shakespeare in chronological order. Here I just printed out a floor plan of a random apartment, and you obviously don't have to physically print it out, you can just imagine something. One more tip is to make the associations as weird as possible, because the weirder it is, the more likely you are to remember it. So let's begin. First is Richard III, and I associate Richard with rich and that with gold, and I'll just imagine 3 piles of gold when we enter the apartment. Then there's a king sitting in our dining room. Let's name him Yawning John for King John. We will walk through the living room onto the balcony where we see Romeo and Juliet, and let's pretend it's night, and let's say it's July 31st, and that's a cue for our next play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. We walk back in, and there are 2 huge gold piles representing Richard II, and when we turn the corner there is a merchant trying to sell us those masks that are signature for Venice, and right next to him is standing Harry Henry, who is trying to buy 4 of them. And we're done. Pause the video and try going through the apartment and see how well you did. And also leave a comment so that I can see how effective this method is for you. These are just my weird associations, but you can make up your own and adapt them to the topics you have to study. And by forming these plans, you embed them in your memory more permanently than just trying to learn them by heart. So two of the most popular and well-known methods of citing are using highlighters and flashcards. There have been multiple studies done reviewing both methods, so let's just start with highlighting. So it turns out that the advantages that highlighting brings depends on the effectiveness of one's highlighting. So subjects who highlighted text while reading perform better on questions related to the information they highlighted, but at a cost of performing worse on questions related to the information they did not highlight. Again, highlighting has its benefits if done correctly, so try limiting the amount of text you highlight and use other study methods in conjunction with that to make the studying as effective as possible. So a great study method is using flashcards. When you look at the front side of a flashcard and think of the answer, you engage in active recall. In other words, you are attempting to remember the concept from scratch rather than simply staring at the passage in your textbook or your notebook and recognizing the word that you highlighted. This prevents you from learning the topic with full understanding since you have the answer right in front of you, making you think that you know the answer when in reality you don't. And again, with flashcards you engage in active recall, making your memorization more effective and more long-term. With flashcards, as opposed to a book, you're also able to separate them into piles based on whether or how often you need to study them again. This practice of confidence-based repetition is proven by decades of research to be the most scientifically optimized way to improve memory performance. Again, flashcards are just a great way of learning, and if you haven't used them already, you must. Speaking of different study methods, it's important to vary them. By doing so, we avoid becoming bored or burnt out from repeatedly staring at the same history notes, chemistry formulas, or constantly solving the same math problems. You can do that by joining related or similar subject areas together. For example, instead of only memorizing vocabulary, mix in reading as well. If doing math, tackle several concepts together instead of just one. Or when revising history notes, try switching between textbooks to mind maps to flashcards. You can also watch a few videos or read a few lectures and even use the method of VLLO. Keeping your brain active in that sort of way will help you focus better and consequently also retain information better. And last but not least, put yourself in the shoes of a teacher. Research shows that students have better memory and recall abilities when they learn new information with the expectations of having to teach it to someone else. This makes sense, as teachers are charged with not only learning information for themselves, but also with organizing key elements of said information to explain it clearly to others. Studies also suggest that students are more engaged and will instinctively seek out different and also better study methods of recall and organization when expected to take on a teacher role. This can be especially effective with subjects like reading comprehension and science, since you have to understand the topic to learn it effectively. So try explaining a chemical reaction to your friend, sibling, or mom, and that way you'll understand it better yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully these tips will help you improve your learning habits and get better grades as they did for me. Have a nice summer vacation, take care and stay safe. See you soon.